Welcome to fall. Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. It is the end of the year book tag. Really, it's like the quarter four book tag. There's not that many questions, and I am not going to repeat answers from the previous years that I've done this. But I thought it would be a fun way to celebrate the season. So the first question is, are there any books that you started this year that you need to finish? Yes, there is one that's been on my TBR on and off for a while that I did start reading earlier this year, and then I got distracted by shiny things and didn't finish it yet, but I do intend to. His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. This is a historical fantasy featuring dragons as part of the Navy in Napoleonic era France and England, I believe. Captain of a ship winds up semi-adopting, bonding, I'm not really sure how it works, a dragon, which are very valuable resources in these war efforts, named Temeraire, I believe. And that's all I really know. I didn't get too far into it. There is 6 books in this series, I believe, and I've heard that maybe the series doesn't continue to stay great, but at least the first book is enjoyable. So that's what I need to finish. Do I have any autumnal books to transition into the end of the year? I do have a recommendation for a book that very much gives the icy, chilly, autumnal into wintry vibes, and yet has tavern and inn and other settings that are a little bit cozy, and it just seems like a good book to read this time of year. The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. The aesthetic, the vibe is quite autumnal, leaning into like late fall, early winter. To me, it feels like very traditional, medieval, Germanic as far as the setting, but then of course with the world building, the magic, the empire we have, the justice system makes it feel different. It follows the story of Justice Vonvalt, who's like a judge, jury, executioner. He's an emperor's justice. It's written from the perspective of his apprentice slash squire, Helena, who is a 19-year-old woman or so at the time that she is experiencing the story, but she's writing it from an older version of herself, looking back on the past with that perspective, which I think made this really fun. Is there a new release that you're still waiting for? Yes, I've been really lucky that a lot of the books I was highly anticipating, I was able to read advanced copies of them. Most of this year's books that I was super excited for, I've actually already read, but there is still one I'm waiting for. It's the sequel to This Vicious Grace that comes out, I think, this winter. I don't think it's been pushed to early next year, but it's possible that it has. It's a story of a queen, but their queens have term limits, which reminds me a little bit of Naboo in Star Wars, where it's like the queen is kind of elected. But rather than being elected, it's because they can control other people's power, with the goal being to defeat this enemy that comes, on a semi-set schedule, and it's up to her to be able to harness the power of others to be able to defeat them. In order to harness these powers, it has to be the person that she's married to, where she can kind of tap into that. But her problem is anyone that she tries to marry and physically touch has died so far. So she feels like a failure. There are people who think that she is a failure and start trying to assassinate her. She winds up finding this unexpected bodyguard to help keep her alive as she's trying to figure out how she can be the queen character that her people need her to be and defeat the enemy. I just really liked the writing in here. I liked the internal conflict. It really deals with loneliness, because this is a person who can't really touch other people without fear of harming them. All of the emotion was very, very well done, very well written. I'm looking forward to the sequel. What are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? These also are new releases. The first one is a short adult fantasy called God Killer, which I have actually started. I'm not very far into it, but it is about a woman who kills gods in a world where once the gods served the people, and then it seemed like they served themselves and they became outlaws. So she's the type of person who is now legally allowed to kill them, but she meets a young girl who is sort of bonded to a very young fledgling god, and I guess they're trying to separate that bond, kill that god without harming the child. Interesting so far, but I'm barely into it. Then Immortal Longings, another adult fantasy. Every year, thousands in the kingdom will flock to its capital, Twin Cities, where the palace hosts a set of games. For those confident enough in their ability to jump between bodies, there is a fight to the death across the city and a chance to win unimaginable riches. An exiled aristocrat and a princess whose families were murdered. They both have their reasons for entering these games and wanting to win. They need to ally to do it, and I think it's not going to be as straightforward as they hope. And it's another one I've been carrying around in my backpack, just like intending to start reading at lunch and then just haven't yet. And Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. This is his third of the secret projects that came out earlier this year. I still haven't read it. I really like what I know of the premise, but I don't want to talk too much about it in case there's someone out there that still wants to go in relatively blind. But I do intend on reading this one relatively soon. Is there a book that you think could shock you and become your favorite book of the year? For that, I'm hoping that I really love Shield Maiden. I have a soft place in my heart for kind of Viking-inspired stories, and that is what this is. It's very recently released. All her life, Frida has longed to be a shield maiden, an honor reserved for Greatland's mightiest warriors. When an accident leaves her tragically injured and unfit for the battlefield, her dreams are dashed, or so she thinks. But a strange, unfathomable power is awakening within her, a power that will soon be put to the test. And it seems like politics ensue, magic ensues. This really sounds up my alley. It sounds like it's going to hit that just sweet spot for me. I'm really hoping that it lives up to that because I have high expectations. And honestly, one of the reasons why the sound of that book appealed to me so much is because it truly would be like a novel comp to the novel I have written, which is somewhat similar but different. So if I wrote something like that, that means I love something like that, so I really hope that I love that. The last question is, have you already started making reading plans for the year? Not really. So I have that outstanding our fantasy bingo card that goes through next year, where I have been trying to make reading choices based on the books that I picked for that bingo card. I already have swapped some things in and out, so that is still forming a long-term reading goal for me. But aside from that, I don't have anything firm set in stone. I have some anticipated reads for 2024. Maybe explore some graphic novels a little bit more, and maybe some manga. I've dabbled a little bit in graphic novels this year. That is my end of the year book tag. Please put your answers in the comments below if you want to participate. If you have a booktube channel and you are doing this tag, please let me know so I can go watch your video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know how the audio quality sounds. The setup here by the new bookshelves is still new, and I'm figuring out the best way to try to have my microphone and everything set up. And as always, don't forget to support your local library.